Joined now by Patrick Johnston of the Province and Post Media. You did a big sit-down Q&A with Canucks president of hockey operations, Jim Rutherford. What did you learn? What did we learn?
Well, Jim has a very nice office. He's turned his desk 90 degrees. I let everyone down for getting to take a photo. No, Jim clearly obviously feeling good. The team that he was hired to take over 2 years ago that was utterly floundering is not. And, he was taking the opportunity to just pop his chest out a little bit that this team is moving in a direction that it should be. Certainly is not shy of the word of how do you become or of the question, how do you become a contender? Like he's told everybody else, like they want to sign Pettersson, that's their plan. But also was clear to me, listen, we haven't talked contract. We just want to make sure the player knows that we want him here. And that they are very comfortable with where they've landed with their management group. The points he highlights, he made a point to highlight the roles of Cami Granato and Emily Castonguay and the analytics team and Patrick Alvin. He gave me a little tour. I will say this: he gave me a little tour of the office. Pointed out where everybody's right there. Like there's a central sort of hive meeting area. They all have their offices around there. Ryan Johnson has an office there. They're adding a big long desk to the conference room because he wants to have the scout meetings right there. There's a real sort of sense of coherence. Talked a lot about Rick Tocchet and why. I asked him, was this the head coach you imagined he would be when you had an assistant coach? He said absolutely. I mean, he reiterated everything I think we started to learn about Tocchet, of how much he is passionate about communication and having that open door and being willing to listen. I mean, there was a lot of that was about listening. That's what I came up with. I mean, Rutherford, who has this reputation as a bit of a old school taskmaster, talks about listening. Alvin talks about listening. Tocchet talks about listening. Like that, there's a big sense of sort of that. I think we would call it emotional intelligence from this leadership group, and he really tried to underline that yet again.
He's not going anywhere, is he? I mean,
No.
with this turnaround, like I wonder if they were a 500 team, like if they got off to just like a fine start, wasn't bad, wasn't good. I wonder if the hunger would be there for him to stick around. But with this team turning a corner here to some degree, I get the feeling he's going to want to see how this ends.
Yeah, I listen. He's 74. We talked about his future, and he knows he's very, he's much closer to the end than the rest of us, literally. And there is a pride element. You want to go out on a high, and certainly the counterfactual. What if this had gone badly? I can't imagine what he would be thinking. He wants to finish. This is the capper to his career, and he wants to finish this on a high note, which I think fans should take solace in. Like they're going to keep being aggressive. The point is to try to win, and that he's feeling healthy. He's discussed with me various little ailments. He's got old knees, he's got old hips. He's had some sort of skin issues and things like the kind of stuff you deal with in your 70s. And but so far so good. And obviously he's got it. His son's in high school, and his wife, he's told me several times, really loves living on the West Side, and they're happy here. They like what's going on here. And the thing I find interesting is that how much ownership has been cited by the various people involved in recent weeks. They are definitely trying to highlight, listen, there's alignment. We're getting along. I mean, we know this has happened twice before, right? Like things were aligned at the beginning, and then they ended badly eventually somewhere. You talked to someone yesterday who knows that very well.
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, clearly things are good, and a lot of it surely has to do with the fact they're just winning on the ice.
So victory lap of media tour, and you say something. Does he have a contract extension signed? Like
I don't
think it's basically
know.
in a drawer, we're ready to be in.
Certainly my impression when I asked him about that is that if there isn't, he's not worried about it. Mm-hmm. I know he was sort of asked point blank about it and doesn't get into it. So my impression is that I mean, the impression when he got hired was that he was here for 2+ an option, kind of 3-year deal. We're in year 3. It's also possible. The other part of me sort of flipped that around and said, okay, well, he's talking like this because he's trying to butter up ownership because he needs a new contract. So, but that's always possible as well. I think he feels like he certainly feels like he should be here. The details are the thing that I think that we're going to have to keep pressing on because that's what we do after all.
Right. Just before we leave the Canucks managerial hive here, they got a water cooler, kitchenette, tea kettle. Paint us the picture here. Be a good reporter.
Well, if you really want, you go in through the doors from the elevator, you turn left, you walk past Stan Smeal's office is still there. Stan still has. I actually saw Stan at the rink yesterday. You walk down a nice hallway, Jim. So if people remember the Jim Benning Zooms when he would be sitting in his office and you'd see BC Place, sort of the sails of BC Place behind him, it's that room. But I actually, honestly, if we really want to talk about layout, the moment I stepped in, I realized where it was. And then Jim pointed out to me that one of the first things that Emily Castonguay had done after she arrived was to turn Jim's desk 90 degrees so that he faces the length of his office. And there's a TV at the far end. There's a little sort of sitting area with a couple of nice chairs. There's a nice chair, obviously, across, for him to talk to people at his desk. No computer on his desk, by the way. But like Jim Benning would have been sitting like squeezed up against the wall behind him. It's not a very wide room. Anyway, I just try to imagine people trying to get in, having to push the door and trying to get in, move a chair and sit down with Benning. That was something that stood out to me. So Jim has this long, nice office, beautiful window, got a nice view looking south over False Creek. Got some nice picture paintings on the back wall of his son and his wife, and then his daughter that from his previous marriage, who's 48 and a teacher of the blind. He was quite proudly telling me in North Carolina. And then you got Castonguay next to that. Alvin is across the little hallway, and there's sort of this central area. Johnston's behind that. Cami Granado is there. She's right on the corner. There's a little passageway out. There's another long sort of meeting room where they're getting this new desk, and that is where they clearly get their lunches catered in because there is a nice serving station on the wall with snacks.
No, like white fridge that's stinky when you open it up because somebody's left their lunch in the back.
No,
not that I noticed
with fish. No, okay.
Not that I noticed. But that room, by the way. But I'll just say what the thing that one of the things, and then on the other side is on the other side of that is the analytics group. Only Aiden Fox in office that day, but there's
explaining why
looking at plus
minuses. Yes.
No, but I'll just say in that meeting room, Rutherford made it clear. He said, "Listen, we have a long table on order." So that we can have our scouts meetings here and we don't have to go to the park anymore.
We wanted to be on record with that.
Okay.
Pride of place,
Right. Speaking of layouts, for the practice facility, we park on West Ball and then walk. I mean, that's where it's happening, right? It's UBC.
My parents live right there. Can they start renting their space out to a Vancouver Canuck?
Super fun.
Absolutely.
You poke around it. There's certainly interest behind the scenes in adding something. I think there would be interest in if you look at that surface parking lot that's west of Father Bauer Arena next to the Osborne Gym, the tennis center.
Yeah.
There's this random, like, it's very old school. Like it's from when that whole area used to be parking lots. It doesn't really make sense when there's a huge parkade across the street anymore.
Right.
And then someone pointed out to me, said, what could you fit in that space? I said, another ice sheet. And so, I think there's notions of that. Certainly, if you look at the official plans, there's nothing like that. But it would be very easy to even just add, even if you needed more dressing room, training center space, even if you didn't put in an ice sheet, there's space there. There are other options on the west side. Like the city has a ton of rinks. A bunch of them are starting to come up for renovation. Kits, there's a whole plan to redo Kits Community Center. There's a rink there, of course. That conceivably would be an option. I think an interesting X factor in all this actually is St. George's, because their hockey program is based at UBC. The Canucks use St. George's like facilities when they're at UBC. Saints have a redevelopment plan that includes an athletic center, for which I think they can kind of do whatever they want. If they wanted to build their own ice rink, that could be an option. I'm not.
Do they have the money? Does St. George's have the money, do you think?
Well, so this is where, let's be
jest.
clear. There are the children of two separate NHL owners are alumni at that school.
Yeah.
So the head coach is Jansen Herkin's dad, Todd. Like, I think it's one of those ones Todd. You start making some phone calls.
Yeah.
It comes together pretty quick.
Yeah.
St. George's has like Vatican money.
They do.
So,
yes. Yeah.
So I'm not saying that, but I think that, so say they open up their own, then all of a sudden there's space, I'm not saying necessarily end up St. George's, but there's a lot of moving parts around this. But yeah, they're not.
So let me ask.
Admitted it to me, he can't. They're just not going to be able to buy their own land. They thought they could, they can't, and so they're going to add to something.
Well, let me ask you about one of the moving parts, because it's clear they're just not willing to buck up to the degree of buying the land and build a facility. So they absolutely have to have a partner here, Patrick. Is that
yes,
sort of?
I think that's because that's
now clear.
That's
right?
what Rutherford said to me. He said it's become clear that we need, that we'll be partnering with someone to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And still with a timeline of the end of this season, which at this stage of the game sounds, I mean, it was ambitious when he first threw it out there. And it's sounding
think they might have
more
a decision by the end of the season. But it's not going to be facility.
It's not opening by the end of the
right.
And as I noted, I think in my story, there is this long, I mean, whether it's true or not, and that one of the items put in front of Chris Tanev when they signed him in 2010 is that we're building a practice facility.
Unbelievable.
They didn't say when. They didn't say when. Eventually.
It's like the snuffleupagus of Canucks lore. Yeah. Yes. We have this practice facility coming, but only children can see it.
Your children's children.
Yeah, exactly.
Children you haven't even imagined.
Exactly. When we first started talking about it, they were children. Now they're grown. Will the Canucks regret Ring of Honor with Luongo with the passage of time?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of in the. I've actually kind of come to the conclusion.
Let me ask it this way.
Okay.
If Thatcher Demko gets to like a McLean Luongo level, will they feel like, that was the right call? That was the right call.
Just establish the standard is that goalies don't get their numbers retired. I don't know. I mean, I think the fatal error is having two different categories. I've kind of come down to, you know what? Let's not retire numbers at all. Let's just have a Ring of Honor. Do it like the Lions do. It's a Wall of Fame. It's these important, Hall of Fame. Other teams call their Hall of Fame. I mean, I guess they've won a Stanley Cup now, so it's hard to compare. But like the St. Louis Blues have a shocking number of retired numbers. Like people that had local, the plagiars, like people who had local value, but you're just like, huh? I mean, obviously, the names that are up there are all team legends. They have a special standard. There was a longevity to all but one. The real one is Bure and Luongo. How different are they? If we're talking about sort of commitment to the team and the way they left. I mean, personally, if you were picking a number to retire, it's Roberto Luongo and number one. Since the standards been set out there, but I think that the discussion in so many ways is skewed by the fact there's these two categories. Like, why are there two categories? Just make one.
But they've almost made a third category with Luongo, and that it's a Ring of Honor. But the pomp and circumstance around it is akin to a retired number. It's like they've split the difference here a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it tells you. Certainly, the marketing team feels like it should be a retirement.
Yeah, right.
And the marketing team and the social media team are from here. So the local sort of on the ground feeling is exactly that this guy should be retired. Certainly remembered fondly as any of the other guys in there. I mean, you look at the Ring of Honor and there's sort of that cult hero status for Harold Snepps and Kirk McLean. obviously in his time was revered. Going down the years, is again perhaps a bit more. Is he closer? I don't think he's Gary Smith. Is he in now that we look back over the years? Is he that kind of caliber of goalie? Really, realistically, Matthias Olin, fan favorite. Yeah, Alex Burrows, fan favorite. Luongo, obviously, the discussion is always going to be a bit more complicated, not just about retired number, just about how you feel about him. That big game element that people love bringing up that I think is unfair. But yeah, this is a guy, like I think I've made clear, he should have his number retired. But honestly, I'm not that fussed about it because in the end, you're recognizing someone's record. It's kind of retired anyway. Like Casey DeSmith turned down number one. And I talked to him yesterday about what a legend he is, and he had a lot of thoughts about 2011 and watching the team then. Positive thoughts, to be clear.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Casey DeSmith and number one.
Yeah.
That's what we're asking on our poll question today. Will any Canuck ever wear number one again? Frank Corrado used the term soft retirement with us yesterday in terms of that number. Where are you on number one ever being used by the
Does the training staff have to turn over so that none of them remember Luongo?
The equipment staff have to, like how, and if you do think someone wears number one, how long do you think it has to be?
Until it'll be, if it does get a sign again, I think you're right. I think we're talking like a generation, 20 years from now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it might be just a soft retirement. I totally could see that. Unless, they're going to go, are you sure you want to wear this number? Like, some guy could come and be like, I am only going to wear number one. Goalies, there are very few number ones anymore anyway, so it's kind of a safe one.
If down the line they trade for a Vezina Trophy winning guy who's always worn number one, maybe that's the kind of moment where it happens.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
Corey Schneider
worthy
level
of the name. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A goalie who's worthy of the name.
Yeah. Like if you draft a goalie in the first round and you develop him and he gets the NHL and he wears number one, you might think
he has to be a first rounder though.
Well, he's that's why I say a Corey Schneider level, goalie prospect.
Even that, like an internal one, I think that's a lot of pressure. I think it's if you're bringing in, Ryan Miller, 2045 Ryan Miller, and he's a number one. I think that's it. But there's so few of them now that it almost feels like you're not even going to run into that as an.
Why not number two? Why don't they wear number two now?
It doesn't look good.
No,
it'll be silly.
With
Ethan Bear out of the way, do you think they're on the hunt for anybody else in the immediate here?
Yeah, that's the there is a swinging for the fences element at this point. Rutherford said Patrick's aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
he's clearly taught him in the ways of early work too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think, I've said it all along. I think they've been interested in finding another forward. I don't think they actually get out from, even if they wanted to, I don't think they get out from under Kuzmenko. I'm not really sure there's a way to make that deal work. But yeah, they've been looking at a forward for ages. I saw someone else mentioning this. I'm like, yeah, they've been looking for a forward for ages.
What about? Go ahead.
No, and yeah, they would love. I have no doubt they would love to add one more defenseman because they wanted to add Ethan Bear.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you if you're a big Ilya Lyubushkin fan or Sean Walker. Or
yeah,
D'Angelo.
sure.
Is anybody a big fan
Tyson
of those people
Barrie.
besides the parents? Come on.
Barrie. Barrie's such a strange fit. Like that's not. I don't think that's really what I'm going for.
No. Well, that's why I say Lyubushkin because he is a right shot.
I have to admit, Lyubushkin is the example. I think it might even have been. It was 3 or 4 seasons. Must have been 4 seasons ago, 2019-20. And the Canucks were playing the Coyotes, and I literally looked down, and he was a player. I was just like, who? because
Yes.
he felt like such the classic Coyote at that point. Had stay-at-home defenseman, not a lot of points. Very long Russian name. You just had never heard of this. You're like, who?
Mhm.
And yet here he is. He's just been this steady guy, and he just doesn't. That's the sort of mentality that I think we assume they would go with for looking for, say, a partner for Quinn Hughes, but that's not what they're looking for. They want a guy that can move, that can play, and that was what Ethan Bear was, and that's what Phil Pronik is now. So
Lyubushkin has 0 goals
Yeah.
in 4 separate seasons. It's the damnedest thing. You could play 41, 51, 46, and 28 games in 4 separate seasons and not have a goal in any of them.
Yeah. Trent Yanni for the kids out there.
Yeah.
Look him up.
Well, or any Canucks defenseman other than Quinn Hughes
Right.
of the last 15 years, really.
But I just meant the
there
0
was a
goals
lot.
aspect.
Oh,
Yeah.
there was a lot of 0.
Yeah.
I mean, we see points from defense now, Patrick,
Sure.
this year.
Yeah.
As you're well aware, it's the damnedest thing. It's a lot of fun. You're our number one, buddy. Thank you for the time here. Appreciate all this, and we'll catch up next Thursday, our final hit before Christmas.
Lovely.
This great clip brought to you by, wait for it, Great Clips. It's going to be great.